Hi, hello, and welcome to my May epilogue. My name is Laura, and in this channel I talk about books and I talk about my life in grad school. And this video is basically my reading wrap up and summarizing the highlights of the month, hence the epilogue. So let's get started. Surprisingly, I read 5 books this month, and it's surprising because I'm a pretty slow reader, so if I read something big, it kind of takes the whole month. But I got to 5 books this month, and that's really exciting for me. The first book that I read is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. If you're not new to this channel, I have like 2 or 3 vlogs talking about this book and how I'm not a big fantasy girly, but I was very interested in the plot from the very beginning and I picked it up as soon as I could, and I fell in love with this book. I thought it was very well written. The storyline is so unique, especially with the magic and their gods, their nature gods, and the magical elements, and everything surrounding the magic in this book is just so unique and so interesting. I don't script these things, so sorry if my thoughts aren't as coherent as I'd like them to be. And I also adored the B plot of the story with Sidra and Torin. Sorry. I loved the B plot with Sidra and Torin, I think a little more than I loved our 2 protagonists. I mean, both of the romance subplots for both characters were just top notch. I loved that they were romantic, but it also really focused on the disappearance of the children and like the main point of it. I am personally not a big romance girly. Like, I wouldn't go out of my way to pick up a romance book, but if romance is like the B plot or even the C plot of the book, like if it's just randomly there, that's when I really like it. Having 2 romance plots while still having a strong main plot was just a great formula. Like, I'm really surprised that a book was able to do it like that. So fantasy wise, I 100% recommend. Romantic wise, I 100% recommend. I don't rate my books, but this was top notch for me. As soon as I'm done with the second book, I am going to put hopefully both in my favorite shelf, and if not, I might have to separate the series because I definitely really loved this first book. And the next book I read is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jaqueline Hartman. And again, I have a vlog where I talk about this book and my initial thoughts with it. And basically, just to summarize what I said in that video, is that I completely understand where the love for this book was coming from, or is coming from. And I do think it's an amazing book, but it was a little too slow for me personally. I was expecting this to be another favorite for me, but it fell short, and so it didn't make it on the shelf. But it is a book that I will definitely would love to reread, because I know for a fact if I were to reread it, I'll get even more out of it or understand things a little more. Definitely get the hype. Is it a little too much? In my opinion, maybe, but it is still very good. The next book I read also happens to be a favorite. So luckily, 2 books made it onto my favorite shelf this month, and I think that is pretty amazing because it is really hard for that shelf to grow. And so this book is called An Apprenticeship for the Book of Pleasures by Clarice Lispector. She is a Brazilian author that for some reason not a lot of people know. I've never heard of her until Amazon recommended me one of her books, and her writing is so deep, poetic, beautiful, sometimes very hard to understand. But this book is one of her most accessible books, and so it was definitely fun reading it. Being an accessible book is not the reason why I made it onto my favorite shelf. I did just want to point that out, that if you want to start with Clarice Lispector, I highly recommend this one. But this is one of her few romance novels about a woman who meets a man named Ulysses, and the main character Lori is basically a loner. She doesn't really get along with people, and she's very isolated until she meets this man named Ulysses, and she basically is struggling through a lot of emotions because of him. I don't know how to put it, but basically he is so in love with her that he is willing to wait for her until basically she gets her shit together. And there's a lot of introspection of self-love, of love in general, and what it means to love, what it means to find pleasure in all the different types of pleasures. And in the afterword, one of my favorite lines that it has is basically this book is about love and to be loved. To love and to be loved, and to be worthy of life itself. And this is from the afterword by Sheila Heti, who I think is also the translator. No, she's not the translator, she just wrote the afterword. But anyways, the introspection that goes on within this book, all the inner thoughts and feelings of our main character just really resonated with me. And also the way that Ulysses, the guy in the relationship, he's a philosopher, and so he basically tries to give her advice to try to help her out to be more accessible to love and everything like that. He also has some beautiful quotes that it's very dog-eared and underlined basically. One of my complaints though is it could definitely be a product of its time situation, but the male character made me laugh a couple times because he is so misogynistic. And the way he would, what's the word? Dismiss, there you go. The way he would dismiss Lori sometimes was kind of like, excuse you. But he would always recover with, he would also mansplain in a sense, but add on to what Lori was reflecting during that conversation. So that was kind of frustrating, but it wasn't in a bad way. But yes, this is the Book of an Apprenticeship, or the Book of Pleasures by Clarice Lispector, and it is my favorite book of May. The next book that I read is Acts of Desperation by Nolan, and this book was kind of a letdown, very disappointing. Okay, to be fair, this was a cover buy, but at the same time, I read the synopsis and it was very interesting. Supposedly it was a unpredictable love story and everything like that, but half of the first half of the book literally reminded me of Me and My Ex, so it's not that unique. And then also, it could have been shorter. There was an element to the book where it was unnecessary because it literally felt forced. It's like if she would forget about it and then a couple chapters later, oh, don't forget about this. And it's like, why even add it in, in general? Spoilers and trigger warnings for this book. Like halfway through the book, we find out that our main character, which I don't even know her name, I can't find her name, but our main character is very self-destructive, very just like that kind of character. She sleeps around, she does drugs, she chain smokes cigarettes, there's a whole chapter of her being like an alcoholic and a humanized character or whatever. But like the way that her chapter about her talking about her eating disorder, the way that it was written really just felt so shoehorned into the novel. And I'm not even exaggerating, where it doesn't come up again until a couple chapters later, and it's like a one sentence, oh, my clothes and my eating habits, and then another chapter a couple chapters later, and again, don't forget about my eating disorder. And it's just like, if it's really not gonna play a big part in her character development, I guess, like, then why even bring it up? And she does also self-harm, but you get glimpses of that, or the author gives us glimpses of that throughout the very beginning of the book. So when it's like full on mentioned and talked about late, like in the later half of the book, we're not surprised. But her eating disorder, or at least in my opinion, the eating disorder aspect of the novel was really out of left field, made no sense, and honestly I thought it was very unnecessary. It's like, okay, she is a very depressed, needs help kind of character. We get it, you didn't need to add her eating disorder. I'm sorry, it's just, I just think it was, I don't know. Why do you have to make your character suffer for a novel, you know? I don't know if it makes sense, but it was a big frustration of mine because, like I mentioned, the self-harming aspect was already there from the very beginning, but just in the middle of the book is where you randomly get that she also has an eating disorder. Whatever. Anyways, so other than that, I do think this was worth the read. I was curious, and I'm glad I got the curiosity out. Did I think it should be shorter? Yes. If you want to read it, read it. I mean, I do have, I don't know if you could tell, but I do have some dog ears, and there are some underlining and everything like that. But honestly, it really is just mostly from the beginning of the book. And then, yeah, I didn't even like the ending now that I think about it. The ending made me mad. It's like, I guess so it could be like more realistic, but it was also, yeah, I don't know. Didn't like the ending. Didn't like a certain aspect. Read it if you want. And the last book, or should I say novella, that I read was Mathilda by Mary Shelley. And this is an auto-fictional novel that talks about her dad's incestuous thoughts and feelings towards her, and I don't know how close to reality it is because I personally forgot, so it'd have to when we talked about it in class, so it has to be something that I would need to look up. But overall, I thought this was a really good read. I love Frankenstein, and Mary Shelley's writing is really beautiful, so I really wasn't expecting not to like this. And then even the story, it was just really good. I did kind of low-key feel bad for her dad, which why I think it was very well written, and it was a good time. The reason why I said a novella is because it is a very short book. This is a scholar edition, and this is like the actual book. So I highly recommend Mathilda if you want to get into Mary Shelley a little more. I am currently reading Poor Things by Alistair Gray, but unfortunately I won't be able to review it until my June epilogue because I'm only 100 pages in. I'm having a great time so far, but thoughts can change once the book is finished. That's all I'm saying. So that is the book segment of this video, and now I just really want to reflect on the highlights that I had this month. One of my biggest highlights is obviously graduating from my master's program. I graduated on May 1st, and it was just one of the best days that I have experienced. My immediate family was there. Everyone that I love was there. My thesis director came just for me because I guess professors have options to attend or not. And she came for me and we took a selfie and everything. And I thought that was really nice. Oh yeah, I got my pictures in, and I know this is silly, but growing up in a conservative household, it is kind of like a nice feeling for me. But when they took my picture of me shaking the hand of the dean of the college, you could see my inner wrist tattoo very clearly. And what's funny is that this is actually inspired by a poem that I read in school, so You know, gotta represent. A couple days later, we also celebrated my sister's birthday, and she decided to do sip and paint, and that was really fun. I've never been to one of those, and unfortunately I was DD, so I couldn't sip, but I did have fun painting. I did that little painting in the background if you could see it, and it was just like a fun bonding time with my sisters and our friends. It was really fun. And then that weekend, my sisters and I went to go see Sean Paul. Never have I ever imagined that I would see Sean Paul specifically, let alone him play or sing the greatest hits that I know. Because I guess I was a little young considering his audience, but I grew up with him and it was a fun show. So some movies that I would love to talk about are actually movies that never ever did I think I would actually watch, because growing up I was very scared of them. But for some reason I unofficially decided to see a lot of horror movies that scared me when I was younger. I wanted to conquer those fears this year for some reason. So back in January I saw The Exorcist, but this month I saw Rosemary's Baby for the first time in probably 12 years. No, not 12, 20. I'm 29 and I'm pretty sure I saw it when I was like around 9 years old, and was not scared at all. Not scary at all. It was definitely more of a drama movie, and it made me so mad. Great movie. I'm glad I finally saw it. I love it so much, but it made me so mad with all the gaslighting and everything that poor Rosemary goes through. She deserved better. She deserved better. I'm just really upset with the way that her husband specifically treated her. He can kiss my ass, basically. Anyways. And in March, I think sometime in March or in February, I saw the first Child's Play for the first time in general. I couldn't even see Chucky like at all. So I never even saw like his actual movies. Growing up though, we did own the Seed of Chucky and I did watch it. So I did end up seeing Seed of Chucky, and then eventually I kind of went backwards and saw Bride of Chucky. And because they were more dark comedies, like the fear went away, and I'm personally no longer scared of him. His freaking face creeps me out, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I was no longer scared. So a couple months ago, I finally decided to see Child's Play. And this month, I finished the movies basically and saw Child's Play 2 and 3 and rewatched Bride of Chucky. And again, I'm glad I did. They were actually, I mean, they were creepy, but yeah, they were actually good. I could see the cult following for sure. And a lot of the jokes from Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky make more sense, because they do definitely reference the trilogy after their like resurgence in a sense. I'm not gonna watch the new ones after Seed of Chucky because in my opinion they all look dumb. But yeah, I'm glad I finally saw the original. I'm pretty happy about that. Let's see what other fears I conquer later on in the year. That is the end of my May epilogue, or my May wrap up. This was probably a short one, so thank you to whoever makes it all the way to the end. If you liked the video, please consider leaving a like, and if you're interested in seeing more of my face, I try to post a vlog every week where I just talk about reading and life in general, basically at this point. So yeah, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. And if this is where we part, then I hope you have a wonderful rest of your time zone. And thank you for watching. Bye!